Hi friends. Okay, today I want to talk about the 5 essential steps that you need to do to start every updo. So this is a free training that I have that you can dive deeper in, grab it on my website. But I just kind of want to talk over these things today because these are kind of like the bread and butter of all the updos that you're going to do. And I think that you can take these elements and use them on each and every updo you do moving forward. Kind of gives you a roadmap of where to go, and it will just help you not have a lot of stress or overwhelm when you're working on updos and give you a place to begin whenever you get started. So you're not just sitting and looking at the hair being like, how do I replicate this photo? It will give you some tools to get started. So let's get going. 5 steps. First step is always going to be a consultation. And so I really dive deep into that in the training, but you want to just make sure you understand your expectations of your bride or your bridesmaid and the expectations of what you can do as well. So I just want to give you the freedom to always say no, that's not in your wheelhouse, and you might need to pass this client on to somebody else if it's not something that you can do yet, because it might just take a little practice and then you can do it. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be prepping the hair. So I'm a big advocate of prepping. What does prepping look like? One thing is just brushing through. And so what you're doing when you're brushing through your client's hair is you're kind of getting a feel for the whole thing. You're figuring out the texture, you're figuring out how thick her hair is, you're figuring out how dense it is, you're taking a look at breakage, you're taking a look at how her hair wants to part, hairline, if she's got a lot of oil in her scalp, all those things. So by prepping the hair, you're brushing through and kind of prepping yourself as well to get going. So I also use product for prep. That might mean dry shampoo and the roots. That might mean texture spray as the hair is really fine. For me, it always means hairspray. So I'm using a lighter hold hairspray. You don't want to use something really hard here. And you're going to spray and disperse all the way through because you want to give the hair a good base to start working on. So if you have nothing in the hair, it's going to be a little too slippery, a little too slick, and it's going to be hard to do what you want. So you want to prep it. And I'm prepping it with hairspray and then brushing through. So that's kind of my main way that I prep. Okay, so we got number 1, number 2, now number 3. Number 3 is sectioning. Now I can talk about sectioning forever because I think it's like the number 1 thing that you need to do to have successful updos, and that's because it's going to give you a roadmap of where to go and how to start working. It's going to make sure that you stay organized and neat, that you're not floundering, that you're not taking pieces out, that you're not touching it too much. Sectioning is just your map of how you're going to do the updo. So today we're going to do something in the middle, kind of a midi updo. I'm going to do it really quick because I'm talking more about the fundamentals, not so much the exact ways of doing the updo. I want you to be able to have some takeaways that you can use in other updos moving forward. So the midi updo is going to be right here, and I know I want to have it all pulled back away from the face and be kind of tighter up above the ears. So what I'm going to do is section out this top section right on the crown because that's what I'm going to bring down and bring some texture into the updo. Section the hair up front, away from the ears, away from the back of the updo, and then a section in the back. So what this does for me is it's going to give me kind of a layout of how I'm going to build and start my updo. So if I just kind of started by curling and then just started pinning curls in different places, that's not going to lead to a balanced updo. That's not going to lead to you being able to replicate a style that somebody brings to you. If you just throw the hair in a ponytail and start curling and pinning, you're also going to miss out on some opportunities to create the detailing that you want. You kind of got to know a little bit of an idea of where you're going to go before you section, and then you section in accordance with that. So because I know that we're going to be doing the base here, I'm going to kind of section all the hair around the base, the foundational part, so I can pull it all back into it. So I've got my top section, and I'm just gonna pin this out of the way. All I have is my little pin curl clips today, but those will do. And then I'm sectioning the hair away from the ear to the front. And I almost always do this when I'm doing something, when I'm starting out, especially when I was first starting out updos. I did this pretty exclusively with every single one, because if you section this hair away and you do this last, then you are able to add a lot of detailing to the front and make sure that's not pulled too tight. You just can make sure it's doing exactly what you want it to do which is really what you want for an updo, because even though the back has to look awesome, the front needs to look amazing because that's what your client is seeing. So if you leave the front out for yourself, that will really help. All right, people, now I'm gonna create my foundation. So for this midi, I'm just gonna do a quick one. And I'm gonna pull this bottom part, my last section, into a quick ponytail. And like I said, I'm not focusing too much on the details today of the updo itself. I really want you to just learn these foundations. Okay, so part 3, sectioning, we have this done. We have our main section for the foundation in the back. We've got the section on the top for the detailing front away from the face, and then same with the 2 sides. So now I kind of have a roadmap, okay? I know I'm gonna do this first, then I'm gonna bring the top down, and then I'm gonna bring in the sides. And so now I know where to go, I know what steps to take, and I can get started. Okay, that leads me into step number 4. So our last sections of our last 2 steps, that we need to think about, step 4 and 5, are gonna help direct what you do next when you start working on the sections. So we've got volume and we've got texture. Volume speaks to how full or not full the hair is gonna be. So if you are looking to do something really sleek, then we're talking no volume. So that means you're gonna have to really be careful as you're pulling it back, use a lot of product to make sure it's really smooth. I actually posted a video about that last week, so how to create really elegant looks. But maybe it's someone who wants a lot of volume, and so then you really wanna make sure you're doing back combing, that you have a lot of lift in there, that you have a lot of good texturizing powder to get that lift. So you need to know what the volume is gonna be before you move forward, because if you just start pulling hair and pinning and you don't know how much lift that your bride wants around her face, then you don't know what to do with the hair when you start to pin. You don't know how loosely to hold it, you don't know if you need to back comb it, so you need to find out how much volume you want. And then the last thing is the texture. So when I talk about texture, I'm not just talking about the actual texture of the hair, but I'm talking about the shape and size of the curl or the wave or whatever you're gonna do. So right now we've just got a little bit of a wave because I had some Hollywood Glam waves in before. But if I know that she wants to have an updo that has a lot of texture in it, then maybe I'm gonna take my flat iron and come through and I'm gonna curl this whole ponytail and really make it have a lot of good twists in it. So twists and bends, that was kind of a fail. She's got a lot of product in her hair. But you see what I mean? I can make more texture back here. So maybe I need to go through and do texture in each section before I start to pin. And you'll know what kind of texture you want based on what your bride's style is that she's asking for. So does she want a nice big curl like that? Does she want to have more of a loose boho wave? Maybe she wants no texture at all. Maybe she wants it really smooth. Those are things you need to know before you get started on those, on actually doing the pinning. So for the sake of ease today, we are going to pretend that this gal wants to have kind of middle volume, so not a lot and not flat, so something in the middle. So that means as I'm pinning this back, and I'll talk you through it, I'm not gonna be holding it too tightly. And let's say she wants kind of minimal texture, so a little bit of wave to it, but she doesn't want it really tight, she doesn't want big loops, she doesn't want kinks or waves, just kind of a more natural look. So for that today, because we're gonna do that, I'm just gonna do a simple twisted pin for here. So I'm gonna take this ponytail and we're kind of gonna go back to even step 1 when we talked about prepping. I'm gonna now prep this section for what I wanna do. So I'm prepping it with texture spray. The hair is really resistant. You can use texture powder, that will hold much better. And I'm just gonna loosen it a little bit. And so that's gonna create that loose texture. So I know she doesn't want too much curl texture, she just wants kind of a natural texture. So I'm loosening this a little bit, and then I'm gonna twist it up and kind of pin it against the head in a little bit of a bun figure 8. So I'm gonna go through and pin this, and I'm not gonna talk too much about pinning today. That's in some other videos. We're just gonna get it up so you can learn the steps. Now, I just said figure 8, but I changed my mind. Her hair is not long enough for figure 8. So I'm just gonna be doing kind of a long bun. See that shape? So this accomplishes my step 4 and 5, which is making sure that it has kind of a middle amount of volume. It's not pulled really, really tight here, but it's not really loose, it's kind of in between, and then I just have a light amount of texture. So I've got kind of this loose bun right here in the middle. If I like it, I'm gonna blast it with a little bit of hairspray here. And then, because I have this sectioning done, I know what my next step is. So I've done step 1, solidified, done, we're not touching anymore. Now I'll move on to step 2. So this is the next spot in my section. It's like my map. And because we're gonna do the natural texture, I'm gonna blast with some texture spray. And I'm just gonna use the texture spray to create my volume. I'm not gonna do any back combing here. So if I really wanted a lot of volume, I would be doing back combing. But because she wants just more of a natural minimal, I'm gonna use the texture spray as my volume maker. You can also use texture powder because that's gonna give you a lot more lift. So I'm gonna use this wide tooth comb here to kind of rake through it. So I'm combing through, not using my fingers too much. And I'm just letting it kind of lay over the top of itself because I wanna see how the hair is naturally gonna lay. And because I've sectioned it really neatly, it's gonna do that for me. Now, if I didn't have this sectioned and I just was kind of picking up hair randomly, I wouldn't have as much control as I do right now. So that's why sectioning is so important. So I'm holding it kind of loosely, and at this point, you want to kind of, check in the front and make sure it's going how you want, make sure that the texture is how you want, make sure the volume is as much as you want, and then you'll go through and pin. So because this is a pretty thick section, I'm actually going to hold it in with these pin curl clips first. And so then it's held where I want, and I can come through with my hairspray and really detail. So I'm kind of moving it around, making sure it's got the lift I want. And then I'll go through and add my pins. So I'm gonna put the pins in. I'm just gonna do this really quick for the sake of time. And once you get your pins in, then you can remove the pin curl clips, and then you can style this section. So I've got this down, and I'll do a little flexible hairspray again. Then I'm gonna just kind of twist and wrap this up on top of itself. So you can see I'm kind of going over the part that I already did down here to kind of create that, like I said, that midi updo, which are really popular this season. It's pretty fun because actually I've been doing wedding hair for about 18 years. And so I've seen styles come and go. And a lot of things that I did when I first started out, I see them coming back, which is wild to me. But I haven't seen midi updos in forever, like so long since we've had updos that are just right in the middle of the head. They've been low, like low buns for so long that it's kind of fun to bring them up a little bit and kind of create this new style. So I'm loving that. I wonder if high buns are gonna be coming back. I've done a few of those, but not a ton. So that'll be interesting to see as well. Okay, so we've got this and it's looking cute. And then I'll do hairspray on this too and just make sure it's kind of balanced. Finish. So now, because we're following our map, what do we have left? The 2 sides. Awesome, okay? So we have a very clear path to go next. And now what I was saying before is when you're thinking about the volume, I said I'd talk through how do we do this. When we're thinking about volume, one thing that we're thinking about with that is not just the amount of lift that you're having at the very top of the head. We're also talking about the tension that you hold on each individual section. So if you're talking slick, then the tension that you hold is gonna be tight. So as you're holding the hair and pulling it back, you're gonna be pulling it tight and holding it tight. If you're talking a lot of volume, then you're gonna wanna back home, do whatever you're gonna do to get it lifted, and then you're gonna be holding it loosely. So the amount of tension that you're holding is really gonna affect the amount of volume that you have. And so I'm thinking about that as I'm working through this. So I'm just holding this loosely, and I'm gonna put some texture spray in because I don't want it to be too loose, but I don't want it to be too tight. That perfect in the middle. And I'm just gonna put this guy in. Now for the sake of time, I'm just quickly putting these in. I am taking way too much hair for one bobby pin. I would probably divide this into probably 4 sections actually, but I just want you to have a quick and easy tutorial that you can walk away with some actionable steps. Okay, loosen these a little bit so they kind of mimic the top, and then I'm gonna decide based on the texture that she wants where I want these to go. So you can see how those 5 steps kind of play into all the things that you're doing as you're working your updo. So I'm thinking about how she wants kind of just loose texture here, the natural kind of wave. That's how I think about that texture step. Like I said, I'm holding loose tension. That's the volume step. I'm working through my sections. That's the section step. I have prepped the hair already, so as I'm going to pin, I already know I've got product in there, which is awesome. So that is the prepping step. And I obviously can prep each section too before I pin, but prepping when you start just helps you work efficiently and quickly as you're going. And then the consultation, because I had that great consultation in the beginning, I know what my person wants and I know what I can achieve. So you can see how those 5 essential steps just keep you on track, and you can use them for any kind of updo that you're doing. It doesn't have to be a specific one. You can just use them as you work, okay? So you can see it's kind of coming together here. I'm gonna spare you the time from doing the other side on camera, but I will finish it up, post a picture so you can see it. And I will also put a link to the 5 essential steps that you need for every updo. I'll put that guide in the comments. If you have any questions about these, please comment on this video and I'm happy to respond. If you have any ideas or things that you want to see, I'm also happy to teach a video coming up based on something that you'd like to learn. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next week.